Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series, Sega Racing Renaissance, where I review every single 3D Sega arcade racing game in a retrospective fashion, and it is a bonus episode day today because in Crazy Taxi 3, you are not racing against anybody, it's a time attack game, not a racing game. But I couldn't do an episode on Sega racing games and not include Crazy Taxi. It is one of their most famous entries, and I figured we'd do Crazy Taxi 3 because it basically encompasses the entire series up until this point, and it did get a very strange arcade release as well, and one of the cabinets you could actually win money back from. So technically Crazy Taxi involves gambling, which is perfect because we're going through Sega's version of Las Vegas right now. And it is fun to get extra courses in this game, and I will say that the Las Vegas area is a really good course. It's got a ton of jumps, a big map, a lot of different secrets to check out. And I think this is actually a really good game, even if reviews say it is only middling. And I think that's because by the time this came out, there was a little bit of an oversaturation of Crazy Taxi. We had the original game and the second sequel on Dreamcast, and then we had a third game very closely following. It seems more like that Sega dipped a little bit too hard into the Crazy Taxi pot and made a few too many games and didn't iterate enough on the formula. Now Crazy Taxi 3 is a ton of fun, but if you played Crazy Taxi 1 or 2, this doesn't change too much whatsoever. You have some different stunt moves, but otherwise it's the exact same formula down to a T. The good thing is that formula is incredible, and Sega absolutely nailed it when they created this franchise. And taking a look at it in 2023, we can forgive it for feeling very similar to the first two games. But back in the day when this came out, there may have been a little bit of Crazy Taxi fatigue. Stylistically on the Xbox here, it looks really good, and the Xbox always felt like a continuation of the Dreamcast, with Sega developing so many of their Dreamcast games on Xbox. And I think it looks so similar to Dreamcast as well, but Sega was always great at using these really poppy colors that have aged much better than that attempt at trying to make a game look realistic back in this generation, because those games hold up much less. But as far as the mechanics are concerned of the game, all of the handling, all of the physics feel like Crazy Taxi, and all of the fun is still there. And if you've never played a Crazy Taxi game before, the formula is insanely simple. Pick up a passenger and go from point A to point B as quickly as possible to earn money, and in between there, if you have near misses with cars or otherwise, you get a little extra bonus. The only thing you want to do is maximize your total amount earned within the set period of time. Now I will say, as far as the Las Vegas level is concerned, it definitely has the outskirts as well, and I've been to Las Vegas too many times for work, and I will say that there's nothing outside of Las Vegas, and in Crazy Taxi 3, this is a more boring area than the downtown strip. There's definitely some fun and some secrets. You can totally just jump your car all the way down into this ravine here and check it out, but a lot of times you don't want to be down here because it's going to really screw you over as far as your run's concerned. But because this is Crazy Taxi 3, it's going to bring the New York areas in as well as the original games areas, which we'll show you shortly. And I will say that even with the pivot to the nighttime in Crazy Taxi 3, New York is probably my least favorite area as far as the entire franchise is concerned, because it feels like it's almost on a grid system, similar to what New York would be like downtown. The amount of turns, the amount of secrets, the amount of ways you can go just doesn't feel as dynamic as the first and the third games in this series, but of course it's still awesome, and having these jumps here in multiple fares in the same taxi does have a layer of complexity to it. But trust me, you want to be careful with that jump because you can totally just ram yourself directly into a wall. But again, this is just the type of game. It is incredible to pick up and play. You can play for 10 minutes, you can play for 4 hours, you're going to have fun the entire time. This was Sega when they were just hitting home runs every single time they tried to make a racing game. And of course, if you do get bored of the Crazy Taxi formula, you have all these different stunt challenges. They range from fun to a little bit frustrating to near impossible to figure out whatsoever, and everywhere in between. As you'll see here, our target leap was 400 meters and we got 450, but with different turbos and shifts, you can do even better than that. But I do love the, for lack of a better term, car parkour levels here. You have to basically jump at the right time and drift to make sure that you can get over all of these different obstacles. It is a small thing for sure, but it definitely gives a little bit of longevity to a game that you feel like might be over in 20 minutes if you played it well. And it does have an obviously awesome soundtrack of so much licensed music. I'm going to try to give you a taste of it here, but if I come right back and start talking, that means the copyright flag went up, but I've crashed into the wall. Go ahead and take a listen.
Driver
And that's going to be a big note from YouTube on letting you listen to that music. But if you grew up with these games, you're going to know all these bands are super popular when these games came out. And it is definitely iconic of a time and place. So I remember all these songs when they were new. And it's one of those things. Crazy Taxi is always going to make me think of The Offspring. But that is the problem with games that use licensed music back in the day. Trying to actually let you listen to it on YouTube is basically an impossibility. But if you want to know what Crazy Taxi sounds like, just go and type in The Offspring in YouTube. Listen to some of their top songs and you're going to know exactly what this game sounds like. But I've covered the gap here. Let's get back to the normal commentary right now. So either you just heard some soundtrack, or you heard me kill 45 seconds of dead air because the copyright flag went up. And I will say, as far as the music is concerned, Crazy Taxi 3 has the weakest of the entire series. But the music from Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole because I can guarantee you those are definitely going to throw up a copyright flag. But as we move back to the original Crazy Taxi, what I'm always thinking is that Sega did the best job first. Having this San Francisco style level from the original game, this is what I think of when I think of Crazy Taxi. It is just perfect in every way, shape, and form. The map, the music, the graphics, that bright blue sky has that kind of Sonic Adventure vibe going on with it. Sega was definitely enamored with San Francisco back in the day, and it shows. And this is still the best I think they ever did. But leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite Crazy Taxi game is. I would be curious. And on Xbox, it is spectacular. If you're going to play one version of Crazy Taxi, just go ahead and play the Xbox version if you don't own a Dreamcast. It is exactly as you would expect, and it looks ever so slightly better than the Dreamcast version. But you can play it on Dreamcast, you can play it on NAOMI. However you play it, definitely give it a shot if you haven't and you are watching this video. And I love all the shortcuts, even when you screw them up. Basically, Crazy Taxi is controlled chaos. You're never quite sure where the cars are going to be. You're never quite sure what you're going to crash into. Sometimes you're playing well, sometimes you're playing terribly, but you are always having fun with the game. Sometimes you use the building as your brakes and you just bounce off it and keep driving, and that 100% works. But this is the type of game, yes, it's a single player experience, but if you bring your friends along and you keep taking turns on 5-minute runs throughout a city, seeing who can score the higher fares, it's going to be an absolute blast. This is the type of game, just keep switching off controllers, play with your friends, and it is just perfect. And I do hope Sega one day gives us a Crazy Taxi 4. I was harping on this concept when we were doing Cosmic Smash, my Dreamcast series, saying give it to me in VR. I'll take another VR game, Sega, if you're listening. Give me Crazy Taxi 4 in virtual reality. I will be there all day and twice on Sundays. But this is just an era of Sega that I absolutely love. Obviously, if you've been watching my channel whatsoever, you know it is one of my favorites. This is just pure fun personified, and that's what Sega was all about in the Dreamcast era. And of course, with Crazy Taxi 3 being on the Xbox, you still get all that Dreamcast experience just on a different console. And even though Sega continues to make arcade racing games and does a great job, I still think this is some of their best. But trust me, these taxis can be hard to control and you can sometimes just totally screw yourself over and run out of time. Happens to the best of us. But I remember being a kid and seeing Crazy Taxi in the arcades for the first time and then getting a copy for my Dreamcast, and I played this game for hours every single day one summer, and every time I turn it on, I still have that same smile on my face. But if you did not grow up with Crazy Taxi, I don't know if it's going to hit as well. Leave me a comment down below and tell me, did you play this game back when it was out, or did you try to play Crazy Taxi later on? Because I've got this feeling that if you came to this game maybe in the 2010s or so, trying to get some retro gaming in, maybe you didn't love it as much. I do think it's aged well, but it is the most simple of formula. Drive from point A to point B as fast as you can. I absolutely love it, but I'd be curious to hear what you think. And it is unfortunate that Crazy Taxi 3 did not review well whatsoever when it came out, because I feel like that's a lot of the reason we haven't really seen much movement in this series. But I mean, Sega has so many neglected franchises at this point in time, you could write a comment of anything down below and I'd be like, yeah, they should bring that one back too. But this is the type of game that was just so big in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it just hit every single time you played it. So whether you play it on Dreamcast, whether you play it on NAOMI, whether you play it on Xbox, PC, it's basically available everywhere, but you do have to give this thing a go. And even like I said, New York being my least favorite course, I still think it's a ton of fun. It just doesn't live up to the same fun that the original and Crazy Taxi 3 does. But it's one of those things, this is just a classic Sega experience. That's so much of what this retrospective's been about. my memories with Sega. I remember getting this game on Xbox, I remember playing the originals on Dreamcast, and every single time I play it, I still have an absolute blast. And so many of you were asking me if Crazy Taxi was going to show up on this retrospective, and I kept saying no, because it's not a racing game, but I rethought that and decided there's no way I can't show Sega's Crazy Taxi. It is such an iconic part of Sega's history. But that's the game. If you never played it, give it a shot. If you've played it, play it again. And if you've played it and don't like it, leave me a comment down below. Tell me why, and I will try to convince you otherwise. But short of that, Crazy Taxi, absolute classic, and we are done. Bye-bye.
Drive faster, you're going a bit too slow! Will we ever get there on time? Keep going! I know!